All right, welcome guys. So in this video, I'm going to talk to you about why getting stuck is actually all in your head and not actually a physical problem. So, how getting stuck is all in your head. So, when we get stuck, when we get let's say we get into a rut or something, or we're making progress and we seem to hit a block or a creative block or just a wall in general. Um, so I'm going to explain to you here how this is actually all in the mind and then how we can actually overcome this. Because if it's a mental problem, then it needs a mental solution. So, mind games. Mind games. So, what are the games that our mind actually plays on us? What are the tricks that our mind plays on us in order to get us stuck, in order to get us into a rut, in order to get us into a form of a creative block or a mental block or whatever? Right? So the first thing is going to be negative thoughts. So our mind will put negative thoughts out, right? We'll start to think negative thoughts and put those into your field, into your view, so that you can start to distract yourself, start to look away from what's actually happening in a way that's going to negate your progress. So let's just use an example. Let's say I've been going to the gym. I just started going to the gym, so I'm still pretty fat, right? Let's say it was a fat guy going to the gym. Still pretty fat, but I'm going to the gym consistently. Now, the mind will try to bring up thoughts of I'm not good enough, I don't look good enough, I'm not going to the gym enough, or just I'm lazy, I'm this, I'm that, right? These thoughts are there as a distraction from the work. They're there to take you away from the work. They're there to pull you away from the work that you're trying to do and that you're trying to accomplish. So, um, so when we are making progress, when we are changing something about ourselves, our brain doesn't like the change. And so it's going to try to present things to us that will either halt that change, that will negate that change and that progress, or that will completely revert us, completely divert us onto another path. So that's why these negative thoughts will come up. These negative thoughts are a means for your brain to convince you that you are not this way, and that way you will ease back into another easier, more comfortable lifestyle, right? Okay. So the next thing is internal resistance. So when let's say this morning, for example, when I went to record this video, if we have some form of resistance, if we have some sense of I don't really want to, I don't feel like it, or just like a feeling or a perception that it'll be too much for us to do, right? This is all a form of internal resistance, and this is another means for your brain to essentially stop you from making more progress, stop you from going further, because more likely than not, if you were to keep going after this initial resistance, you are going to have a breakthrough moment. Every time your brain or your body has this intense resistance to doing something you've been doing or that you're about to start doing, typically that means that it is a breakthrough moment and that it will progress you significantly. It will exponentially grow your progress, or it will exponentially increase your progress. So this thing, whatever it may be, this thing is actually the most important thing for you to be doing. Your brain brings up all of this resistance to it because that means, if you were to overcome the resistance, that means that the brain has to change. Because if it's a breakthrough moment, that means that your brain is about to have to completely deprogram and completely rewire, new wiring. And so you'll feel this resistance come up when you're at this breakthrough moment as a means to A, test you, and B, for your brain to make one final stand against the change, right? And so if you overcome that resistance, you will be able to make that change. And then the last thing is temptations. So we have negative thoughts, we have internal resistance, and then we have temptations. So we may not feel much resistance to the work. We may be very confident internally and mentally about ourselves. So then what will we be presented with? We will be presented with temptations, whether that be sexual, whether that be food, whether that be some form of drugs, social media, any type of easy or comfortable distractions. We are going to be craving and tempted by these things. in order to distract us. Again, our brain is going to crave these things as a means to seek something more comfortable, as a means of seeking something easier, as a means of seeking pleasure, as a means of distracting you and diverting you away from the work that is causing it to have to work and change, right? So if the brain is working and the brain is being made to change, the brain will try and tempt you away from the work that's being done. My bad. Um, so how giving into the mind actually gives it power. So we have all of these temptations, we have these negative thoughts, all the mental games, right? What happens if we give in to the temptation? Or what happens if we start to believe the negative thoughts? So allowing the mind to become your master, right? Allowing your mind to win the battle is going to leave you is going to leave you feeling a little bit weaker, and it is going to leave your mind in power. It is going to make your mind start to essentially become your master when you give in to the temptation, or you give in to and believe in the negative thoughts that are coming up. Your mind will start to, over time, gain a little bit more power over you. And for most people, this has gone on so long that their mind is their master, that their mind is the controller of their reality and the maker of their reality, rather than them using the mind as a tool in order to do so. So when the mind can win, when the mind can put a temptation in your face and get you to give in to that craving, now the mind has more power. And so now the mind becomes lazier. Now the mind has less desire to do work because it doesn't need to. And because it now has the power, it now has the control in the situation, right? And so if you tell your brain to work, but you are not the master, your brain will not work. Your brain will not do the work because the brain is the master. The mind will overcome you, and the mind will overpower you, right? And so this is why it's very important to pay attention to these mental games, to pay attention to these things that are going on, and to actually divert our attention away from them and back into the work, back into the thing that we're making progress in. Because this will continue to make the mind work. It will continue to make the mind change and adjust. And as this happens, the mind becomes more accustomed to change, and the mind becomes more accustomed to being the tool instead of the master. And then, so how this will actually get us stuck? When the mind is in control, when the mind is our master, we will naturally get into a rut. We will naturally get into a place of being stuck and being stagnant because the mind does not want to change. The mind wants to preserve energy, and the mind wants to stay comfortable, stay where it already knows that it is okay, right? It wants to stay within the known world. And so if the mind is the master, you will stay in the known world, which is where you are right now. And that is why you feel stuck, because the mind is where it is comfortable and does not want to change, does not want to move, whether you want to or not. And so therefore you feel stuck because you cannot move forward because the mind is your master and the mind will not move. So how to overcome stagnancy? If the mind has become your master, if the mind has overtaken you, what can you do? First things first, you can get the ball rolling. So starting to do activities that will get momentum going, but may not be the end all be all. So like, let's say if I really could not record this video this morning, one thing that I could do instead is clean up some of my room. I have some laundry and stuff to do. I could do that laundry, right? And I could clean that stuff up. I would start to get some momentum. I'd start to get the ball rolling. I would start to get things moving, and this little bit of progress would make it a little bit easier when I want to go and then maybe record this video or do some other business work, or if I wanted to go and train. Whatever it is you're trying to do, if you do a small activity that gets the ball rolling first, then it becomes a little bit easier the next time because you have now overcome the mind. You have now become the master of the mind by doing something disciplined, right? Even if it's something small like cleaning your room. It can even be other activities. Let's say you have a business going, and there are tasks that you can do that are very simple and don't take a lot of work. Start with these tasks, right? And just get the ball rolling, get things moving forward. And then this, because you are being disciplined, even if it's a tiny bit, you are overcoming the mind slightly. And so you can continue this momentum as you go forward. You can continue to overcome the mind as you go forward. So the next thing is actually exercise. So exercise alone is the greatest thing you can do for stagnancy. Why? Because it gets your blood flowing, right? It clears energy from the body and from the mind. And so therefore that clarity will allow you to more easily move through things and more easily do the things you have to do. And therefore the mind will be less likely to try and stop you. And if it did, you will be better at overcoming that because the exercise and the work has cleared extra energy, has cleared anything out of you. And so you have this clarity of mind to see the distraction for what it is instead of being pulled by it initially, right? And another thing is that because of the nature of exercise, because it takes work, it takes discipline, you are overcoming the mind in exercise. You are overcoming the mind while exercising. And so this is training you to be the master. This is training you to be in control of your mind and to do the difficult thing when your mind is resisting it. And then again, this will train you to be the master of your mind rather than the other way around. And so this next habit is actually the habit for training your ability to control the mind, and it's meditation. In meditation, we teach ourselves to keep our awareness out of the mind and in the body. We train ourselves to keep our awareness on the body and out of the mind, right? So instead of constantly being stuck within the mind, within the mental space, we are pulling ourselves out of the mind. We are pulling ourselves into the body, focusing on the breath, on the body, and on our present reality instead. When we do this, we begin to deprogram the mind as the master because the mind wants to get up. The mind does not want to sit there and do nothing. So we are training the mind that no, we are in control by reducing or negating that desire to get up when we feel it, or the desire to get lost in thought or whatever. We are we are reverting our attention back to the present moment and out of the mind. And as we do this more and more, we will gain more consciousness and more awareness and more presence, which gives us direct power over the mind. Journaling is the next thing. So journaling, if we have a lot built up in the mind, a lot blocking the mind, and that might be a reason we get stuck because we just are too overwhelmed in the mind, we can journal and we can get all of this onto paper. And when we get all of it onto paper and we see it for what it is, this gives us a better ability to understand ourselves, understand our minds, and then control our minds, right? So we can actually change certain aspects of our minds if we just write about that part. Like, let's say there's a certain thought that I continuously have that I don't like. If I write about that thought, it'll give me a better ability to change the thought because I'm able to understand it by writing it out and then seeing it. As well as when we get stuck, when something happens within the mind, typically our mind knows, but doesn't know how to present it to us. And so if we journal, our mind has the opportunity to present to us why it's stuck, why it is struggling to move forward. And then if we can see that, we can also rationalize it, which is the mind. The mind wants to rationalize and understand everything. And so if we can understand it, the mind might be more likely, and it might be a little bit easier for the mind to commit to change. It might be easier for it to commit to moving forward if it can see and understand where it is going. And then the last thing is identifying why your mind is holding you back. So you have to identify exactly what it is about your mind that is holding you back. Exactly why is your mind stopping you? Why is your mind preventing you from moving forward? Why is your mind preventing you from doing more work? This could be diet related. This could be a certain drug that might be just making it hard for you to think, right? It could be anything, but identify what it is. Identify why your mind wants to hold you back, right? Because maybe the work that you're doing isn't purposeful. Maybe that's why your mind is resistant to it. Maybe the work that you're doing is purposeful, but you're afraid of the success. And that's why your mind is holding you back. If you can identify the reasoning and if you can identify why your mind wants to hold you back, which journaling can help with this as well. But if you can identify why, then you can actually go and dig until you get to the root of the problem. And from there, you can overcome the problem. From there, you can actually heal and overcome and become better, right? And when you heal and you overcome and you become better, this in and of itself is an example of growth, of change. And so this is you overcoming the mind. This is you seeing its problem and then solving it and overcoming it and becoming better, growing and evolving. And this is yes, going against what the mind wanted, but after the fact, once you have changed and made that change, the mind will be grateful and the mind will be more easily able to do its job, more easily able to do the work that you present it. So yeah, that's all I have for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you want more content on self-improvement, on fitness, on spirituality, you can press the subscribe button. But other than that, I'm out of here. Peace.